All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'm here to play poker. Boston Billiards, 1-2, 1-3. Objective today is to flop a set. That's pretty much it. And yeah, let's get right into the hands.
All right, gentlemen, welcome back. This session started off like many others. I won some pots, I lost some others. I quickly found myself stuck, so I decided to add on $200 to get back up to the max of $500. Played a couple more hands and ended up getting back to even. So now I have a stack of about $700. That leads us to this hand, which happened about an hour into the session. There's an early position limp, the button makes it $15, folds to me, and I make the call with queen 3 of clubs in the big blind. The early position limper makes the call, and we're off to a flop, which comes 4, 5, 6, 2 clubs. This is obviously an awesome flop for me. I'm open-ended, and I also have the queen high flush draw. I check with intentions to check raise. The early position player leads for $60, over the size of the pot. The button calls 60, and now it's to me. I decide to stick to the plan despite the early position player's super strong lead. I check raise to $175, and then this happens.
175. I'm all in. Players all in.
So yeah, my plan of leveraging any fold equity goes out the window when the early position player rips his stack in for $900, covering the both of us. The button has about $500 left, and he goes into the tank forever. This gives me a lot of time to think about what I want to do. I decide if he folds, I'm just going to fold, lick my wounds, take my $200 L, and move on to the next hand. While the button is tanking, the early position player is pretty much telling us he has a straight. I believe him. There's not much else he can slam 300 big blinds into the middle with. The button is still tanking, and at this point, I think he either has a set or an overpair. At one point, he says, "This hand, man, this hand," which makes me think he has pocket aces and really doesn't want to let it go. He was a pre-flop raiser, so he can still have aces, kings, and queens. And I've played with him a bunch. He's really not the strongest player and definitely might stack off here with aces, even though I personally advise against doing something like that with all this action. So he eventually calls, and now I'm priced in to hit my flush. It's a little more than $500 to win a pot of almost $2,000, so I'm getting direct odds to hit a club. Plus, if the early position player has 2-3, I have a bunch of chop outs to split up the button stack. I make the call and start praying to the poker gods. Here's the run out.
Big red. Big red. Big red. Big red. Big red.
Black. Yes. Oh, yeah.
Good. Awesome. I got a straight. Thank you, guys. Oh, hold on.
Early position, his name is John. You can tell he's kind of a dick by the way he goes, "Thank you, guys," but he's pretty funny, so don't mind. The button had ace 4 of clubs, so I was drawing stone dead to a chop the entire time. From now on, I'm not going to play queen 3 suited. Alright, I think that's my lesson. That's my $700 poker lesson for the day.
Player chips 150. One block or so.
I take out my last $400 and put it on the table. Literally 2 hands after the queen 3 abomination, I pick up pocket queens on the button. Unfortunately, I was still getting my chips situated, so I didn't get a shot of me peeling the queens, but you're just going to have to believe me. The poker gods are throwing me directly back into the fire, but I'm ready. Action folds to me, and I make it $15. At this point, we're playing 5-handed. The small blind makes a call, and John in the big blind also makes a call. 3 ways to a flop, which comes king, 10, 4, 2 clubs. The small blind checks, and John donk leads for $30. I think I have a pretty easy continue here. There's a bunch of draws that he could be doing this with, and pocket queens are still a relatively strong hand. I make the call, and the small blind does as well. 3 ways to a decent turn. It's the queen of spades. Turning middle set after losing a humongous pot. The poker gods, they're funny sometimes. Better yet, the small blind leads out for $30, and then John in the big blind raises to $90. Now I have no clue what I want to do. The board just got more connected, but I have a hand that wants to commit stacks. If I jam, I'll probably scare away king x hands, and that would suck. If the small blind's on a drawing hand like jack 10, I don't want him seeing a river because he's going to have a decent amount of equity even against my set. In the end, I decide to just make the call, go for the high variance route, and hopefully get a massive triple up. If I jam here, I pretty much only have a straight or a set, and I think that would be playing my hand way too face up. Plus, I'm in position, so on any clean river, I can get my stack in no matter what. The small blind ends up folding, so we're heads up to a river, which comes the 7 of diamonds, an absolute brick. John leads out for $75, and I fake tank for about 3 or 4 seconds and rip in my last 262. This sends John into the tank. He announces he has 2 pair, and I start praying for a call. He gives a monologue saying, "Oh, do you have ace jack here? Jack 9? At one point, he goes, "I just don't think you have a set. There's no way." I'm sitting there thinking, you'd be very surprised, pal. He wanted a shot on the vlog, so I picked up my camera and gave it to him. After what felt like an hour, John finally makes the call, and I scoop this massive $870 pot. Exactly what I needed after that queen 3 hand to start my session.
Flop 2 fucking pair and lose.
Here's a little stack update for you guys. A few minutes go by, and I'm on the big blind with ace king of clubs. There's a button straddle, but under the gun didn't realize this and tries to open for $15. The small blind folds, and I bump it up to 20 after under the gun already showed his intent to raise. Looking back on it, this could have actually been a limp 3-bet opportunity. If I just limp in and under the gun commits to his raise, I can just put him in the absolute blender. Instead, he just calls my open and everyone else folds. Heads up to a flop, which comes 9, 4, 6, 1 club. In single raise pots, I like to check out a position because people make a lot of mistakes when check to. If I have a strong hand, I can go for a check raise. If I have a weak hand, I can just get out of the way without losing any more money. In this case, I have a pretty medium strength hand, so when under the gun bets out for $25, I decide to just make the call. The turn's an interesting one. It's the queen of clubs. This card is great for my range, and it also gives me the backdoor nut flush draw. I decide to check with intentions to check raise, but under the gun checks back pretty quickly. The river's a brick, the 5 of diamonds, and we're sitting here with ace king high. My hand can sometimes be good here, but I think I want to bluff out low pocket pairs and even a 9 that hates that queen on the turn. So I size to $55. Under the gun thinks for a few seconds and ends up making the fold, so we got this one through.
Doesn't get any lower than that.
The very next hand, I pick up ace queen offsuit in the small blind. Still playing 5-handed, action folds to the button, who makes it $17. I'm obviously 3-betting, this time sizing up a little bit since I'm out of position. I make it $55 and only the button makes the call. Off to a flop, which comes jack, 10, 5, 2 spades. I go for a check out of position. I have a lot of equity with my 2 overs, gut shot, and backdoor flush draw. But this board is really good for my opponent's 3-bet calling range. He's going to have hands like jack 10, pocket 10s, ace jack, maybe even pocket 5s, king queen, or 8-9. Not surprised when he bets out $55. I don't see any merit in doing anything but calling, so that's what I do. The turn gives me a lot more equity. It's the 9 of spades. Now I'm open-ended and have a flush draw as well. Unfortunately, it's also a great card for my opponent as king queen gets there. I check and my opponent sizes to $110. I contemplated check jamming for my opponent's remaining $400, but thought better of it seeing how this board absolutely smashes his range and I'm not going to get a fold from much. Still, can't really fold, so I just make the flat call and hope for a river that improves me. Unfortunately, it rolls off the jack of diamonds. I check, opponent jams 300, and I have to fold. I hate playing passively like this, but I don't know. I feel like there wasn't much I could do. Let's just see what my coach has to say about it. When I get into weird spots like this, I really like to text my coach and see what his thoughts are. Another really good input from him, so super grateful to have him. Stack update time. Not good. Alright, still playing short-handed. I get dealt ace-9 offsuit in the cutoff. Action folds to me and I open for $15. Only the button calls and we're off to a flop, which comes 9, 7, deuce, rainbow. Single raise pot, I'm out of position. I check with intentions to check raise. Unfortunately, the button checks back. I probably should have gone for a bet considering my 9 needs a bunch of protection, but that's okay. Off to a turn, which is the 7 of diamonds. I delayed c-bet to $15 and the button snap raises to $50. He raised so fast, it's like he decided he was going to raise no matter what. I'm pretty high up in my range after I check the flop, so I decide to just make the flat call and evaluate a river. The river comes a brick, the 5 of clubs. I check and my opponent snap jams $150. Super polarizing bet here. He's either got nothing or a 7 it feels like. I have no clue what to do. On one hand, he could easily have a 7 here. On the other, I under-repped my hand a lot by checking the flop, and I'm kinda at the top of my range. I decide to rely on a live read to make my decision. After he threw his chips in the middle, he kinda sat back in his chair and gave this look like he's thinking, fuck, my wife is gonna divorce me if I don't get this bluff through. This tell is good enough for me. I stick in the call, and he flips over ace-5 offsuit. Definitely a creative bluff by him. It put me in a tough spot, but I'm just not good enough to fold there. And yeah, we're going to take this one down.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
An orbit later, action folds to me on the cutoff, and I raise to $15 with pocket 6s. The button calls, small blind folds, and then the big blind raises to $45, which is a really small size, especially when somebody called my open. I remember my goal from the intro, which was to flop a set, and you can only do that with a pocket pair. So I call the $45 raise, and the button does as well. Off to a flop 3 ways, which comes 10, 6, 4 rainbow. We've achieved our goal of flopping a set. I think about getting up, collecting my stuff, and heading out now that I've done what I set out to do. But a bigger part of me wanted to stay and see how this hand played out. The big blind continues for $55. On a dry board like this, I don't feel the need to raise. My hand doesn't benefit from any protection, and I'm likely to scare off any of the big blind's bluffs and any of the button's 1 pair holdings. So I make the flat call, and the button does as well. The turn is the 9 of spades. If one of my opponents has 8-7, then they're getting my stack, as I'm going to try to put as much money into the middle that I possibly can. Unfortunately, the big blind slows down and checks. I have a set, so checking is out of the question. Time to charge top pair holdings with a bet of $75. The button makes the call and the big blind folds. The river peels off the jack of clubs. Having a hard time putting my opponent on a hand, I decide to bet big and try to get max value from the top of his range. I throw out a bet of $225 and the button immediately starts moaning and saying, "Aw, come on, man." He tanks for a while and ends up folding 10-5 of diamonds face up. Unfortunate, I think that jack might have killed some of my action, but taking down a nice pot nevertheless.
Well, there you go. $5 button.
The button straddles on, and I look down at ace-10 of clubs in the cutoff. I open to 20, and only the button makes the call. Heads up, out of position to a flop, which comes 9-6 deuce with 2 diamonds and a club. Not much going on for me, so I start with a check out of position. The button quickly checks back, off to the turn, which comes a 3 of clubs. I picked up a bunch of equity, so I decided to take a stab at this pot, try to get bad 1 pair hands to fold. I bet 30, and the button quickly calls. The river's the beautiful 7 of clubs, so I've somehow backdoored the nuts on this board. This is the same opponent that folded to my $225 bet in the last hand, so I decided to bet small in the hopes that he'd pay me off light. I bet $50, and looking back, I fucking hate this sizing. He has about $200 left, and he literally tanked for like 2 minutes with second pair no kicker, so he definitely can make a really light call. I also backdoored the nuts, which you don't see every day. So jamming here, I think, would look really bluffy and have a good chance to get paid off by a large portion of his range. As played, he snap calls, shows 6-7 for 2 pair, and I feel like the biggest idiot in the world.
I don't care. His money in his pocket, says the guy with the ball.
I'm obviously on a heater, so I decided to chuck out a $15 blind raise under the gun +1. Just kidding, that would be minus EV, and I'm GTO, so not allowed. I didn't have my camera situated when I peeled Queen Jack of Hearts. 3 players call my open, and we're off to a flop, which comes Ace, 5, 10, 2 hearts, flopping a royal flush draw on a board that favors me as the early position opener. I'm going to have hands like pocket aces, ace king, ace 10, pocket 10s, ace queen, a million hands that I absolutely smash on this board. I continue for a bet of $25, and only John in late position makes the call. The turn's not great. It's a 7 of clubs, so I don't improve somehow. But I'm still going to have a ton of hands that want to go for value on the turn. I decided on a pot-sized bet of $115. This bet pretty much froze John. He said he puts me on pocket queens, told me nice bet, and folds pocket nines face up, which is a fantastic result. I show my hand, and everyone tells me I should have just checked, so we could have seen the king of hearts on the river, and I could have won a $300 high hand. Poker is not dead, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations. If you're watching this, you've made it to the end of the video. Your reward is the biggest hand of the night. There's an early position limp, and action folds around to the small blind, who raises to $20. That's when I look down at ace king of spades in the big blind. This is what we call in the industry an epic gamer moment. I 3-bet to $80, the limpers fold, and the small blind makes the call. We're playing very deep, about $900 effective. Heads up to a flop, which comes 8 high, but with 2 spades. The small blind checks to me. I only have ace high, but I have a ton of opportunity to improve. Plus, I'm going to have all the overpairs that will want to continue on this board. I size to $80, a bit larger than the standard continue in a 3-bet pot, hopefully to make it seem like I'm trying to protect my overpair against flush draws. The small blind makes the call, and we're off to the turn, which comes the 10 of clubs. The small blind checks again, and I decide to continue to rep aces, kings, queens, stuff like that. I bet $300. I think this large turn bet puts a ton of hands in a horrible position. Even if he's at the top of his 3-bet calling range, a hand like pocket jacks, it's going to be hard to continue. And if he does, I can jam just about any river whether I improve or not. He doesn't call. He jams for $450 more.
Well, shit.
And I puke in my mouth. In the moment, it seemed like there were only really 2 hands he could be playing like this, pocket 10s and pocket jacks, both of which I'm not doing great against. But it's only $450 to win a pot of almost $1,900. I'm still drawing to the nuts, and if my ace and king are live, I'm getting more than the right price to make the call. I stick in the money, ask if he has a set, and he says no. So my ace and king are live. Smash the like and subscribe button for an ace, king, or spade one time, please. The dealer collects our chips and puts out the 10 of spades, giving me the nut flush in this $1,900 pot. Holy shit, thank you, dealer. Oh my god, one of the biggest pots I've ever played in my life. While reviewing the footage, I noticed something. When I asked if he had a set, he said no, I have a straight and flush draw. So it turns out he had a hand like 9-7 of spades or queen jack of spades. I spent days thinking I got the money in bad and sucked out, when it turns out I was actually a giant favorite the entire hand. I decided to head home shortly after and book a really, really nice win, especially after being down 700 to start the session.
All right, boys, that's going to do it for this video. Featured comment down below. I was in for 1,100, out for 1,911, so a profit of $811. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps a ton. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.